and in detail. CNN legal analyst and former federal prosecutor Renato Mariotti is here to talk more about this, and CNN legal analyst Shan Wu. He was also the attorney for Trump aide and Paul Manafort's longtime right-hand man Rick Gates, who pleaded guilty in the Mueller probe as well. It's great to see you both. Let's start with Manafort, Shan. I want to ask you about what happened in court today and kind of what that could actually mean. If Manafort's attorneys, they want to know from the Mueller team what they think he lied about to break the deal, and they want to see evidence of what that could be. That could mean discovery. Is that a problem for Mueller's team if that's what happens?
It's not likely that Manafort's team is going to get what they want. This is the problem for cooperators. When you cooperate, the prosecutor is judge, jury, and executioner. They really hold the keys to yourself. Now, they can certainly challenge it, as they're doing. They're saying, no, we did tell the truth. He was forthright. But it's the prosecutors who really make that decision, and ultimately, it's very much of a discretionary call. The judge is not simply in a practical position to second-guess them as to every piece of truthfulness, every piece of withholding. The judge would essentially have to have not a mini-trial, but an entire trial at that sentencing. And as Renato, I'm sure, knows also, that's just not practical. So you really must convince the prosecutors you're trustworthy. If they come out against you, if you've lost your favor with them, you are in a deep hole, and that's where Paul Manafort finds himself.
How much information, Renato, do you think we're going to get out when the prosecutors lay out why they think he lied?
I think it'll be significant. I mean, we may not get some details because they're highly sensitive or classified,
right.
But I think we'll get enough detail because Shan is right that certainly Manafort's got a very uphill battle, but the judge still needs to find by what's called the preponderance of the evidence by 51% that Manafort did lie if she's going to consider that as part of the sentencing, and certainly Mueller's team is asking her to do so. So I suspect that we'll see enough to make it clear that Manafort was not being candid with the prosecutors.
Let's talk about Michael Cohen as well. Shan, how important is it? How significant? What did you think when you heard this detail that Michael Cohen has spent some 70 hours with the special counsel so far?
The 70 hours is an enormous amount of time. What that tells me is that there is nothing that the prosecutors don't know about what Cohen wants them to know about. And what he wants them to know about are things which will be damaging to the president, his family, his business. So that is plenty of time to fully explore that. That's a very big problem. It always was a problem for the president when Michael Cohen flipped, because this is your lawyer who's flipping. It's the person who hears you normally under confidence, under privilege. You're letting your hair down, confiding in him, brainstorming ideas. They may be crazy ideas, maybe illegal ideas. He knows all of that. 70 hours is an enormous amount of time. There is a lot of ammunition there. It's very, very problematic for the president.
And Renato, the president made the case yesterday, and he said it a couple times, that there's nothing wrong with looking into a business deal with Russia when he was running for president. On its face, that is not illegal, but if that's the case, I mean, I know everybody keeps returning to this, but it is important. Why are so many people lying about it?
Well, that's a great question. I think that's the $64,000 question, Kate. And certainly not only was the president not being candid about it, but his family was not being truthful about this. And, you know, just to be clear, Michael Cohen made this lie to Congress many months ago. No one corrected the record. No one came forward. So I really begs the question, and what it suggests to me, as somebody who was a prosecutor for a long time, is that there's more here. And while we're all going to be waiting to see what happens, Mueller has been digging and probably knows some more of those answers, and we're going to find them out in the months to come.
And Shan, I mean, the president very famously in an interview with the New York Times had said that Mueller looking into his finances would be a red line. I think it was his family and his finances. That definitely seems to be what we're looking at right now. I mean, what do you think that now means?
Yeah, really, for the president to say that, that's like waving a red flag rather than drawing a line in the sand for people to look at.
Look here, look here, yeah.
don't look there. So that's, he does not want that to happen. You know, that the paragraph 7 in that information filed yesterday is very troubling because it talks about the family members in the business. Right. It mentions the mysterious campaign official, which could be Paul Manafort. Looking at Trump's business is a big problem for him, and the biggest problem that's so blatant here is so many people seem potentially willing to lie about it to cover it up. And in D.C. in traditional white-collar investigations, it's the cover-up, it's the lying that gets you in trouble. And this case now is just permeated with false statements convictions. And part of that's a failing of the legal strategy. Part of it is probably that the client doesn't listen to the lawyers, but they have a lot to hide in terms of businesses, and that attempt to hide it is getting them in tremendous hot water. I mean, this thing that surfaced with the Putin thing, I mean, that's just unbelievable. Renato said the $64,000 question is like the $50 million question,
exactly.
really. I mean, a marketing tool,
for inflation.
by that, right? That sounds like a bribe to me, frankly.
Well, Renato, Shan mentioned the family. Do you think, as Alex Marquardt was kind of laying out what we learned in the information from the court yesterday, and Michael Cohen's when he was pleading, do you think that the president's family is in trouble now, legal trouble?
Well, if I was the lawyer for Donald Trump Jr., I would be very concerned. If you asked me a few days ago, would I be worried about Donald Trump Jr. being charged? One thing I would have said is, well, his biggest liability that's obvious is potentially lying to Congress, and it's not clear to me that that will really be charged or whether Mueller would see that as within his authority or his scope. And what we found out yesterday is Mueller does believe that lying about these Russia-related matters is within his scope. And, by the way, according to CNN, Acting Attorney General Matt Whitaker saw and learned of that plea deal in advance and didn't block it. So he apparently agrees with that.
Yeah, and that was another interesting fact to come out in all of this. It's great to see you both. Thanks so much. Let's see what happens today. Coming up next.